school. I had written it in my journal. I knew the definition of sociopath was out there somewhere. I just had to find it. In retrospect, it all makes sense. As a doctor of psychology, I can't help but marvel at the cunning genius of the subconscious mind, why we're drawn to certain subjects and indifferent toward others. According to Freud, nothing happens by accident. But you don't need a Ph.D. to know why I chose this field. You don't have to understand Freud to grasp the connection. You don't have to believe in fate to see my path could never have led anywhere else. The red flags were there from the beginning. I knew as early as 7 that something was off. I just didn't care about things the way other kids did. Certain emotions like happiness and anger came naturally, if somewhat sporadically, but social emotions, things like guilt, empathy, remorse, and even love, did not. Most of the time I felt nothing, so I did bad things to make the nothingness go away. It was sort of like a compulsion. Had you asked me back then, I would have described this compulsion as a pressure, a sort of tension building in my head. It was like mercury slowly rising in an old-fashioned thermometer. At first it was barely noticeable, just a blip on my otherwise peaceful cognitive radar, but over time it would get stronger. The quickest way to relieve the pressure was to do something undeniably wrong, something I knew would absolutely make anyone else feel one of the emotions I couldn't, so that's what I did. As a child, I didn't realize there were other options. I didn't know anything about emotion or psychology. I didn't understand that the human brain has evolved to function empathically, or that the stress of living without natural access to feeling is believed to be one of the causes of compulsive acts of violence and destructive behavior. All I knew was that I liked doing things that made me feel something. To feel anything. It was better than nothing. Now that I'm an adult, I can tell you why I behaved this way. I can point to research examining the relationship between anxiety and apathy, and how stress associated with inner conflict is believed to subconsciously compel sociopaths to behave destructively. I can postulate that the pressure I experienced was almost certainly a negative reaction to my lack of feeling, that my urge to act out was most likely my brain's way of trying to jolt itself into some semblance of normal. But none of this information was easy to find. I had to hunt for it. I'm still hunting. Sociopath, such a mysterious word. Its origin is based in century-old science, but it's since been misappropriated to cover all manner of sin. There's no singular definition for the term, not anymore. The word, much like the people it represents, has become something of a paradox. A shape-shifting modifier whose meaning is often assigned via vitriol and grievance, sociopath is a word that evokes more feeling than it does analysis. And why is that? Why does the word sociopath make people feel more than it makes them think? Ironically, it's what I wanted to know long before I was diagnosed. So I made it my mission to find out. This book is the story of that mission. One that I was driven to write because the lived experience of sociopathy deserves to be illustrated. To be clear, I do not want to minimize the severity of this disorder, nor do I want to romanticize it. Sociopathy is a perilous mental condition, the symptoms, causes, and treatment for which need research and clinical attention. But this is precisely why I wanted to share my story, so individuals affected by sociopathy might receive the help they have needed for far too long, and perhaps more importantly, so that other sociopaths might see themselves reflected in a person who has more to offer than just darkness. Of course, not everyone will relate to my experience. It's pure luck that I'm even able to tell it. It was luck that I was born into a world where I would be afforded almost every privilege imaginable. The truth, I am well aware, is that my life would have gone very differently if my race, class, or gender were otherwise. It was luck that, in part, set me on a course to unpack the mystery of my condition and build a life where I've been fortunate enough to help others. Indeed, it's lucky that this book exists at all. And it's lucky that I have come to understand the value of relatability and representation. Most sociopaths aren't like the characters in movies. They don't all resemble the serial killers in Killing Eve or Dexter, and they aren't similar to the one-dimensional antagonists many crime novels suggest. They're far more complex than the fictionalized examples presented in The Sociopath Next Door. Diagnosing them requires more than the 20-question tests in glossy magazines, and understanding them cannot be done using sociopath tutorials on YouTube and TikTok. Think you know a sociopath? You're probably right.